Welcome back to America's Forum. I often joke I'm a recovering member of Congress. Why? Because I make promises that I now keep. Joining us here at the anchor desk, Dr. Ben Carson, author of the new book, You Have a Brain, a teen's guide to thinking big. A big presence in this segment, in addition to you, Dr. Carson, is Jack Bergman, who's co-hosting from Newsmax Washington. But Dr. Carson, as we welcome you in, let's think big. You're running for president. If you were commander-in-chief today, what would be your response to the beheadings of the Coptic Christians?
I'm thinking about running for president. Correct that. Okay,
well, friendly amendment.
I am extraordinarily concerned about the fact that we are not responding to the atrocities that are going on over there. There's a tremendous leadership void, and I would fill that leadership void by making it very, very clear that we are going to react in a very strenuous way to any kind of atrocities of that nature. I believe we should use every resource available to us. Nothing should be off the table. This whole concept of we can't put boots on the ground because of what happened in Iraq is silly. So the threat that Saddam Hussein posed and Al-Qaeda at that time is on a completely different level than what we're looking at now. And it is extraordinarily immature to equate the two and the reactions. And, you know,
Doctor,
ISIS is a group that really wants to destroy us. They want to destroy our way of life. And we have two choices. We can sit back and wait for them, or we can use the resources that we have to destroy them. Our military is extremely good. Our leadership in our military is very good. They need to have missions defined for them. That's why they have a commander-in-chief, and that's why he has advisors.
Jack Bergman here.
But once that mission has been defined, trying to micromanage them is silly.
Dr. Carson, Jack has a question for you now.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, Dr. Jack Bergman here. Over the weekend, 4,000 troops went from Fort Carson to Kuwait. It just seems to me that's kind of an anemic force. Just following on what you're saying here, if you were president, do you have a sense of the size of force you would send over there? I mean, most people on the right are calling for 3 or 4 times that number. What would you do as commander-in-chief?
Well, I would certainly be willing to listen to my military advisors. You know, I know a lot of people who are in the military, top military brass I've talked to. They're very smart people. They have very good strategic planning. And I would listen to what they had to say in terms of the number of troops we needed and how we needed to use them. And the other thing, I have to emphasize this, there's no such thing as a politically correct war. Our troops have to understand that if they go in and they fight, that they're not going to be prosecuted when they come back here. That we're not going to have some bunch of people saying, you did this and you shouldn't have done this. This is not the way you fight a war. And we have to give them esprit de corps. And we have to know, they have to know that we have their backs.
Mindful of that, one of the criticisms of the president's request for an authorization of the use of military force comes from my old colleague Mac Thornberry, now the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. He says this language is drafted in such a way that lawyers would be interpreting the rules of engagement, that again you would have a war that was litigious rather than a true military conflict. Does he have a point?
Well, he does have a point. That's one of the reasons that, you know, my book, One Nation, I said that we need to make some rules for our legislation. And that is, everything should be written at the level that can be understood by an 8th grader. Not something that you need a gaggle of constitutional lawyers to interpret, because it leaves it open to too many different interpretations. And to me, it says that they don't really know what they're talking about. Oh, this gobbledygook. We don't need that.
Hey, Doctor, while we have you, let me ask you this, maybe a focus on 2016. A two-part question. Have you started raising money? And how do you see yourself going up against some pretty formidable fundraisers like Jeb Bush?
Well, you know, the way I look at it, there are millions, hundreds of millions of people out there. And we will see what they are willing to do. There are also some big money people that we're in contact with. I'm in the process of evaluating all of this, making sure that the adequate amount of support is there before we make all the appropriate announcements.
And mindful of that, you offered that friendly amendment at the outset that you're thinking about running for president because all of the laws and all of the regulations that surround that particular topic.
Yes.
Let me ask you about the situation that's unfolding now. The funding for the Department of Homeland Security has not been secured, has not been given by the Congress. The president is moving full speed ahead with his executive amnesty. If you had advice for the Senate and House leadership, what would it be?
I would say break the funding for Homeland Security up into parcels. Don't present it as a whole bill. And that makes it much more difficult for him to stand in the way. And if he does stand in the way, particularly of things that are vital to the security of this country, then I think we can start talking about treason.
Now, would you repeat that statement?
Doctor,
hang on a second, Jack. Hang on a second, Jack. Hang on a second.
If things are done that are contrary to the security of this country, whoever does them is guilty of treason.
Go ahead, Jack.
Doctor, let me ask you this. Sorry to have interrupted. If you were president, how would you manage if you were in a shutdown situation? Let me ask you this. How would you advise Senate and House Republicans right now to win this shutdown battle? That is, if this does come to a shutdown, we seem to always lose shutdowns. How do we manage the public relations of this battle so we can win?
Well,
About a minute to answer this, Dr. Carson.
First of all, you need to recognize that you're going to be blamed no matter what. So if you're going to be blamed no matter what, get something out of it. Let's stand up, let's have some spine. I think one of the reasons that so many people have tuned out is because they don't believe that there's anybody who represents them. They think that people always back down. We have to stop doing that. And, we have to think about the future of our children. My whole life has been centered around children. And if we continue to pile up debt, no matter who's gets blamed for it, we are not doing them a service.
And speaking of children and today's Americans, the new book from Dr. Ben Carson entitled You Have a Brain, a teen's guide to thinking big, but not only for teenagers, for the rest of us too. Dr. Carson, we thank you again for your time. And
a pleasure.
You're always welcome here if you decide to announce for We'd love to have you right here to do that. Okay. When we come back, Jack Bergman and I will talk with Professor Robert Rabeel, but right now we step aside for this Newsmax Now update.